Seen your Twitter notification, thought I'll join in.
May as well, innit? You gotta be done. Oh, bro, all right, we'll make a kick off then. People, Matt, you can man the gates for me again and
Will do.
make a start. Right. Okay. So yeah, good evening, afternoon or morning, wherever you are in the world. As Alan has just corrected me, it's always nice to think that this is confined just to Wales, but we're not. We're a multinational user group, obviously. Yeah. So welcome everybody to the October virtual meetup of the Welsh Azure user group. As usual, thank you all for joining in. I'm sure people will start to filter in as I do my usual preamble and just a few introductions and housekeeping. We'll kick things off as we always do, just to say, thank you to everybody for joining. Thank you to the speakers for coming on and giving up their time tonight as well. Myself and Matt, we are I guess, the remaining kind of user group founders slash organisers.
People standing.
The last people standing now. In fairness, we've had some really great help, and it's as always with these things, life and work and families and everything get in the way. But no, it's myself and Matt. So look, as usual, it's a community user group. If you've got any ideas, if you want to speak at the user group, if you've got whatever it might be, reach out, add us on LinkedIn, say hello. Really be helpful if you can help share. Obviously any posts we put out about the Welsh Azure groups, it kind of helps that coverage and, brings hopefully more people into the audience in future meetups. But yeah, big thank you from myself and Matt for everybody to join us tonight. Let me just run through a quick few housekeeping rules. Hopefully by now, those that have been on many of these things, these should be pretty much ingrained in all of our brains. But should go without saying, please, everybody, be courteous to each other. We're all here to learn, interact, have a little bit of fun, and listen to the speakers. As always, there are no silly or stupid questions. We're here to learn. So now's your chance. You've got some experts in the field coming on and giving up their time to impart their knowledge. But please do stay on mute unless you're invited to come off and speak. And use that chat window. If you've got access to the chat window, ask any questions, and then each speaker, whether they can monitor the chat themselves or pick up Q&A at the end of the session, I'll leave that to the speakers to work out how they want to do that. There'll be a feedback link at the end of the event. Again, like I say, all feedback is all valid and always good. So anything that you've got to tell us and feedback would be perfect. And as always, we've got our quiz. So everybody is welcome to join in that quiz, speakers included. We've normally got some good prizes, some gift vouchers up for grabs, and some packet ebooks as well, courtesy of our sponsors. But most of all, look, everybody, please do be interactive in the chat and enjoy the sessions, because I think we've got some, really good sessions lined up for you tonight. So, so on that note, just by way of introduction, our speakers for this evening, Mr. Alan Cox, he's going to joins us from the US at the moment, so he's enjoying his lunch right now, but he's coming on to talk to us around what, obviously what jumped out to me about this talk was that multi-tenant organisation thing that I think we probably, if you've been in the space for a while, we've probably all kind of interacted with. But I mean, personally, I'm finding it more prevalent with customers, especially those types of customers that are going through mergers or acquisitions or whatever it might be. So that MTO space, I think, Alan's going to impart some really good knowledge. So really keen to hear his view on it and kind of what his expectations are and what he's learned from that. That's a really good space that's quite prevalent at the moment. So looking forward to Alan kicking off as soon as I stop rambling on. And then Konstantinos, a friend of the Welsh Azure user group, is joining us again. He's come. I can't remember what it was, Konstantinos. It was got to be at least a year ago you joined us last, I would imagine. But yeah, coming on to talk about, was it about a year ago, something like that, I think?
Yeah, almost a year. Almost a year, John.
So time flies when you're having fun. See, that's the thing. So coming on to talk to us about not just Azure AI Services, which is obviously a real hot topic for us from a Microsoft perspective and society at the moment, but looking at it and how we can get those services running on AKS, those Kubernetes services within Azure as well. So look, hope you'll agree, kind of two contrasting talks, but equally two valid, really, quite cool areas to look into this evening. Timing wise, like I say, Alan will kick us off fairly shortly. Konstantinos roughly around about 7:30 UK time. Do the quiz straight after that, roughly about 8:30 this evening UK time. So about 2 hours from now, we should be looking at about an end. Like I say, from a quiz point of view, we've got a couple of Amazon gift vouchers up for grabs. And as always, I'll get the titles. I always forget to grab the titles of the ebook, so I'll do that. And when we get to the quiz, I'll get the titles up for the ebooks up for grab. So lots of prizes again tonight. Just a quick thank you to our sponsors, as always. Look, we're privileged as a user group to have 3 sponsors at the moment, and you might think, well, what does a sponsor do for a virtual event? And it is kind of putting up those spot prizes. It's their support, help spread the word, and get the word out there about not just the Welsh Azure user group, but the UK and Europe and worldwide. There are so many great user groups out there, so they really help to spread the word and support us in terms of those prizes and just whatever it might be. So big shout out first to Servant. They've kind of been with us since the early doors, well, pretty much from day one of the Welsh Azure user group when it got rebranded back in the COVID years. And like I said, I think last month was our 4-year anniversary. So like I say, Servant have been with us every step of the way. So big shout out to those guys. If you don't know them, they're a Glasgow-based Azure pure play consultancy firm. Work with them personally on projects. They're a really great bunch of guys and gals. Des and the team have got a lot of knowledge, a lot of credence in the industry, and work really well with Microsoft and Microsoft technology. So if you are in the need, go and give them a quick look up and say hello. Equally, our second sponsor, Credit Safe, a good few months back now, I was we've been kind of interacting with some of the folks that work at Credit Safe with this user group for a little while, and Ridian reached out and asked if Credit Safe could kind of lean in and sponsor our user group, which of course was great because they've got a HQ down in South Wales in Cardiff, and that's our target. What we're trying to get is local businesses and get those folks to these calls just to kind of interact and network and share the knowledge with these great topics. So big thank you to Credit Safe as well for joining us on this journey. And lastly, but by no means least, is our recent edition of Packet. So for those of you that don't know, Packet are all about education and books, physical books and ebooks. And they reached out and obviously offered us again some spot prizes. We've been able to supply some ebooks out to our audience, which has obviously been received really well. So if you don't know about Packet, go and look them up. They've got some really great books and great titles, real spanning a lot of the technology space, not just Microsoft focus. So there's a lot of good coverage, and I'm sure if you've been in the industry for a while, you will be familiar with Packet. But go and give them a little bit of kudos and credence. So I think that's probably about it from me for the time being. So onwards with the sessions for tonight. And on that note, again, thank you everyone for joining. Thank you to our speakers. And Alan, I will hand over to you to take it away, if that's all right, sir.
Yep, that sounds great. Thanks for that. Thanks for having me. Truly enjoy being part of these groups. I get to do that fairly often. You can see my screen, yes?
Yep, got you loud and clear.
Perfect. We are, yeah, so we're gonna, we'll run the PowerPoint here for just a little bit. We'll try to get through these. I'm not really the type of guy that likes the PowerPoint. Of course, anytime you do these live and you have a live demo, well, then you're kind of at the mercy of whatever Microsoft's doing at the time anyway. So, but we do have some demo. We're going to set this up. The thing is, when we're talking about multi-tenant organization, is like a lot of things inside of the M365 space, you do a configuration. It takes about a month of Sundays for that to actually realize, right? So things don't happen immediately, and so we had to get things kind of configured. But we'll walk through that and show you. So I'll start by saying, I imagine if I were to poll the room, everybody here, everybody's worked with multiple tenants or situations like John, you had mentioned mergers, acquisitions. Those are certainly very much a great use case for an MTO or even a partner type setup where you collaborate with somebody for a certain period of time, like I said, a vendor, a partner, those sort of things. And then maybe there's a time where you no longer need that partnership, right? And so to be able to separate that off, we see that a lot in our world, in the firm that I work for. We'll talk about that in just a minute, but especially in like pharmaceutical fields where they'll sell off a patent. So they may partner or have a business unit that they may sell off, and separating a business unit could be really easy also with these concept of multi-tenant organizations. We're going to talk about some of those use cases, but oftentimes when you're having those type of needs for collaboration across another tenant that's tightly fitted with your organization through partnership or through an actual acquisition, that maybe you don't have a need or a desire to migrate them into your tenant just yet, but maybe you need that close, rich coexistence and collaboration. It's been clumsy, to say the least, from Microsoft over the years. Oftentimes, you have to do the guest access, and the guest access is limited. And so I want to talk about how this fixes that problem. And so just just a little bit about me. As I mentioned, my name is Alan Cox. So I manage a team of Microsoft Platform Advisors for a company called Thrive. We're based out of Foxborough, Massachusetts, up near Boston. We do, however, have offices all over the world. We actually have 3 in the UK. And so I meet with folks over there quite often. Usually not past noon my time, but we have to get them early in the morning. But we do have offices there as well as Singapore and Sydney, Australia. So pretty good size Microsoft service platform service providers. So that's a lot what we do. There's my QR code there directly to my LinkedIn. Happy to connect with you up there anytime. Some of the agenda items here is we're going to talk about just multi-tenant organizations. What exactly is it? For those that don't know, why would we use a multi-tenant organization? What are some of the use cases? We kind of talked about that just a little bit. We'll dive into that a little bit. We'll talk about managing the multi-tenant organization, and then some of the requirements and the recommendations, some lessons learned. I've been working with the multi-tenant organization since it was well into preview, barely into preview. Some of the changes that have made, some of the improvements. So this is definitely an area that Microsoft is focusing on, and I really think it solves a really big problem in our use cases. We'll talk about some of the limitations, the current limitations in the MTO and best practices for multi-tenant organizations. We'll talk about configuring the multi-tenant organization owner and member. So that basically refers to a scenario where you may have an owner would be the tenant that say, in my example that I will show, I have a Microsoft tenant, and that tenant acquired a company called Contoso. So my Microsoft tenant is considered the owner. It owns the data, and members are syncing from Contoso into the Microsoft tenant. So I'll show that. You could go both directions, but more often than not, we find that all the data is housed kind of in that home tenant, that owner tenant, and then we sync things one direction, but certainly they can go in multiple directions. Then we'll get right into it, and we'll look at some demo stuff and how that works. The reason I essentially screenshot a lot of the configuration of the multi-tenant organization, that owner and that member, is because it does take a little bit of time for that sync process to happen and for everything to kind of the dust to settle a little bit. So we've kind of had to do that ahead of time so that we can showcase some of the user experience there. So just by way of introduction, multi-tenant organization, is a feature that essentially allows you to manage multiple organizations from a single account or a single tenant. By using this MTO and 365, we could reduce complexity, streamline management across enterprises that span multiple tenants. I've got some clients that I've got several clients that are doing this, and I have one client that started doing this even when it was still in preview, and they did it in their production environment. sort of beta testing it, and it worked out really well for them. And now a lot of the services around MTO and this multi-tenant concept is really improved. It's really layered upon a technology that has been around for a little while, and that's the cross-tenant synchronization. That's been around for a while. Now, when we get into the configuration, you will see that it is simplified the configuration of that cross-tenant synchronization, and so, but it really allows us to streamline this. The one particular client that I have, they acquired a company. They wanted to set up multi-tenant organization. They felt, well, they came to me with the scenario. I suggested they look at multi-tenant organization. It checked all their boxes. They will at some point migrate the users, but really this just kind of gets them a head start into syncing users into that tenant. So even in a migration scenario, there is a use case for doing multi-tenant organization syncing ahead of time. It all comes down to identities. Data just kind of follows that. So, but overall, it reduces complexity. It reduces the user experience is much improved because we don't have that guest access and the invites and if you set a SharePoint configuration, for example, that says everyone has access, maybe read-only access to a SharePoint site except for external users. Well, guest is considered an external user, whereas multi-tenant organizations synced users do not come across as guests, and that is the key. And we'll look at that in just a little bit. Why might we use the multi-tenant organization to centralize management, improve overall security? By the way, those users that are syncing from one tenant to the other, things like unmanaged devices, multi-factor authentication, all of that can be configured to honor those configurations, those security settings as well in the multi-tenant organization. I was just looking at. By the way, when I'm presenting, I kind of get focused. If somebody has a question and they pop something in chat, I'm perfectly fine to address that question right away. So yeah, feel free to ask a question. I'm totally fine if something comes up. So otherwise, the managing the multi-tenant organization involves essentially. Really, it's not a whole lot different. It's creating and managing those users and groups across organizations. And so assigning the permissions, just like you would, will demonstrate that. And so, we'll look at some of the different options for creating and managing those organizations and how to manage users and groups in these organizations. So the only objects that really come across at sync are users. Groups do not, but oftentimes what we will do is configure this to sync groups of users so that we can manage, especially in a pilot scenario. But and we'll take a look at some of that. So some of the requirements: need an Entra ID, P1. New teams is definitely recommended, and the reason that it's recommended is that you can receive some real-time notification for all the tenants in your multi-tenant organization. So in the other teams, version 1, we'll say, doesn't have the notifications in multiple tenants like the new Teams version 2 does, and so that helps with that. We can participate in chats, meetings, and calls across the tenants without dropping from a call or meeting just to switch tenants. It does require a little bit of org switching for certain things, but the org switching is so much faster. If you've ever done that, I have a few, and I'll show that in real time here. They can set statuses for each account and organization individually, and the user profile card shows organizational name. We'll also take a look at labels. That's something that's new, labeling in Teams to identify what organization that user's from. We'll take a look at that. And then the trusted organization and the external access. This is all built automatically now when we do the multi-tenant organization. As I mentioned, this tees off of an old configuration inside of Entra ID called cross-tenant synchronization. This automatically creates that configuration. When I drop out of the PowerPoint here and we'll go to our tenants, we'll show you kind of what that looks like, and we'll dig into the nuts and bolts of how this is all put together. We mentioned some limitations. Here are some limitations. So it's interesting because when this was in preview, the maximum tenants, not domains, but tenants, was 5. It was the maximum. That includes your home tenant. So, in my case, the Microsoft tenant, and then I had, that would be 1, and then I could have 4 other tenants. So now the maximum is 100 tenants. I work with a lot of organizations, but I don't think I've ever worked with an organization that has 100 tenants. A lot of domains, but not 100 tenants for sure. Teams on the web, Microsoft Teams Room and VDI, AVD are not supported right now. Now, Teams on the web does have the limitations. It's not that it doesn't work. It just doesn't have all of the features that the Teams version 2 desktop client has. We're actually, because I'm in Teams for the meeting, for this meeting, obviously we can't demo from there. We will use the web version, but I'll highlight some of those differences. The ability to grant or revoke permission to receive notification for other tenants and to switch tenants on mobile currently is not supported. And then people in your organization links may not work for users in another tenant if that account had originally been a guest and they had previously accessed the SharePoint resources. So one thing I'll tell you is that mileage has varied in this, but what I have seen is that when users are already a guest in a tenant and you do a multi-tenant sync, the user converts from a guest to a user or to a member, which is the key, because these users are not coming across as guests. I mentioned that early on. They're not coming across as guests, they're coming across as members. And that is the crux of the whole solution, is because Azure or Entra sees them as members in the tenant, not as a guest. So they're not considered external users, right? So that's what this is kind of referring to. It could take up to 7 days for a user to appear in a search once they've been synchronized. That has not been my experience. I see it in about 24 hours fully. The initial sync takes about 40 minutes for the user to show up. But then, like to be able to assign resources as a permission, to add to a team, those things, I usually see it take roughly 24 hours. Support for guest user type of member. That's what I was referring to. The guest user type is now a member in Power BI, is currently in preview. So some of the access stuff in Power BI is still in preview in order for them to be guests or members rather than guests in Power BI. So managing users in multi-tenant organizations involves pretty much creating user accounts, assigning roles, managing access to resources. It's really not all that different. Those users show up in the GAL. They show up in some of the changes that they've made in in recent. Well, really since the preview was lifted, is the single checkbox in order to see free busy. We'll look at that. A single checkbox in order to enable labeling inside of Teams, and it only shows up in Teams now. You'll see what I mean by that in a little bit, but it helps identify what organization that user's from. So we'll look at some of those different options there. As I mentioned, groups themselves do not sync over just yet, but members of groups do. This is one way that we often will pilot this. Is I'll create a group in the source tenant or that member tenant and say, like MTO users or something to that effect, and I can grab all those members and move them so that, or sync them. So that's a way that it uses, we can pilot it that way. It makes it pretty easy. It's essentially this syncing mechanism is essentially very similar to in the technology behind it is not unlike Entra ID Connect that you would do from an on-premise Active Directory. So it's and we'll look at some of the mapping and the attributes there. So working with multi-tenant organization in 365 does require some planning, execution. We'll look at some of the best practices for working with multi-tenant, including ensuring some security, collaboration across organization, customizing certain areas of the MTO configuration to meet specific needs that we have there, and ensuring that we have strong authentication, access control policies, monitoring user activity. We'll see how we can use logging, auditing, and all of that. Still manages and monitors user activities, even if that user is a synced user. We'll look at different options for ensuring multi-tenant organizations and mitigating potential risk there. Sharing files is this is often. I had a conversation with a client just last week, and oftentimes the way it comes to my team is, hey, a client wants to share files externally. Okay. All right, well, we can talk about external sharing policies, DLP. We want to wrap all those purview items around that to make sure that it's securely, to kind of sidebar that just a little bit. I get a little bit annoyed when organizations say, we're not going to do any external sharing. We're just going to turn it off. Well, the truth is your users are sharing externally. They're going to find a way. And so what you need to do is, it's not that you need, and if that's a company policy to not allow any external sharing, that's fine. But to me, the best practice is to make sure that you have the safeguards in place so that they're not dropping outside of the secure ecosystem of 365 and sending it on its way anyway. Because what's to prevent them from dropping it into an email and sending it out, right, as just a raw attachment? Now I get, if it has sensitive information, DLP can still catch it, and that's kind of my point. So oftentimes I'll get this call that says, hey, we want to share externally. Okay, well, what's the use case? Well, we have another company that, they need access to our resources. Okay, well, maybe instead of just sharing the files, maybe we should set up those users as an MTO, sync them in so that they have access. You control all the access, and it can go away as soon as you're ready for them to go away. So that's oftentimes how it comes in, and it's really not much different. Sharing sites, folders, files. We're going to take a look at that exact. We're going to take a look exactly at that right there. So as we get into the configuration, so let's talk about the configuration of this. And as I mentioned early on, I had to kind of walk through the configuration. Now, these tenants that are referenced in this configuration aren't the actual tenants that I'm going to be using today, because I had to break it down and set it up because, Microsoft's doing some weird things with the CDX tenants right now. But in any case, we got it set up. But I can't do this. I couldn't do this live because, I have to have a tenant kind of all ready to go because Microsoft's limitation on CDX at the moment. And so anyway, but we'll walk through this, and then I'm going to drop out of here and we'll go right into the configuration. We'll show you where this is. So essentially, I'm going to configure the owner. So this is the tenant that I want my other tenants to sync into. The owner tenant may be, mothership, right? That's got the resources that I want these other tenants to access, right? So that's kind of my home tenant. So under the under settings and under org settings, we go over here to organizational profile. You should see multi-tenant collaboration. Okay, we're going to ask it to create a new multi-tenant organization. Okay, because we don't have one right now, we're going to create a new one. We just give it some name and some description, and the tenant that I want to sync into. So this is my other tenant. This would be Contoso. So that's my source tenant. And then from there, as the owner, sync settings, we want to allow the user to sync into this tenant from the other tenants in this multi-tenant organization. And here's part of the key: suppress consent prompts. So the users, when they're synced, they're not getting any of these prompts. Accept an invite or any of those, and then we just create this multi-tenant organization. And so now on the member side, so I'm over in Contoso side, and this will make a little bit more sense when I actually show you the configuration if you've not seen it. So we're going to create or join. In this case, we're going to join an existing one. So I want the tenant for my, in this case, it's Microsoft. It's not, as I said, this particular tenant, but same concept. So the tenant ID, which we grab right from the overview site in Entra, there, and then it's going to recognize the domain. We pull that up, and yep. And so the tenant's going to be added, and it takes just a few minutes for this tenant to add. And then once it's added, it says now this is the concept of sending users over from one tenant to the other, or syncing those tenants. This is called share users. So then once the tenant is added, it'll show up like this. We have the option here to share users. And we'll get a couple different options here. One is called simplified sync. That's where I can go in and say, that's where I can go in and say, I'm going to only select users at the user level. So, here I've got Megan and Alex and Adele that they're synced. So I'm picking users. The customized sync, it actually takes you into the Entra ID to set up to configure a group that you want to sync. So those groups members. So it's a little more custom. Or if we have different tenants and we want to sync them in, to different directions, and so the more customized stuff. Typically, I'm going to do simplified sync, or I'm just going to do I may do a group here, but overall, relatively straightforward as far as the setup and the configuration goes. Once that is done and it syncs those users, we'll see this flagged as enabled. So I'm externally syncing is enabled. I'm only going in one direction. Your users are being shared with, in this case, Thrive Collaboration External, but it's not. It's actually Microsoft Tenant, which we'll see here in just a second. And then there's other configuration options once that's done that I go into, and so I'm going to drop out of this, and we'll do I'll do a screen share, and we'll actually look at a couple tenants. And sometimes it can get just a little bit confusing because I am dropping from tenant to and bouncing from tenant to tenant, but we'll take a look here. All right, we'll drop out of here. Okay. And we're going to move this out of the way. Cool. So you can still see my screen now, right?
Yeah, still got you.
Perfect. All right. Taking a look at time. We're good. All right. So this is my Microsoft tenant I've been referring to. So this is essentially my my home tenant or my owner tenant. And as I was talking about, we drop into settings, organizational profile, multi-tenant collaboration. And here is the collaboration. Here is the configuration that I have going on. Here are the two different tenant IDs. These are both basically just demo tenants here, right? So now I could right here share users across, but I can manage these settings right here, and this is where I said that I can, with a checkbox, I can see Free Busy from Contoso. Contoso is my other tenant that is basically my my member tenant, or the tenant that has the owners I'm syncing from. So we'll look at those users in just a second. Custom team label, here's where a custom label for each tenant, and I'll show you where this is, but basically it says I can identify the user within Teams, and currently this is only in Teams. And so what that looks like right now is, let me look up. Let me look up Megan here. Megan, see this label here? That tells me that she is a synced user from Contoso. Remember, I'm still in the Microsoft tenant, so I'm in my target tenant, and we can see that she's actually coming from a different domain. Now, this display name, I have configured this in the source so that in my global address book, where this doesn't show up, this only shows up in Teams right now, this shows up everywhere. So it helps me to see that user's Megan is from Contoso. So she's from a partner company. And in the way this looks, if I were to go just here, for example, I can see Adele. I can see Alex. Again, I'm in my Microsoft tenant, so I'm in my target tenant. They're syncing to, and then Megan, who we're working with here. Those are the three accounts that I'm syncing over from Contoso. Okay, and so if I were to look at, remember we got Free Busy going cross tenant. So if I were to go into my calendar, again, I'm in Contoso, and I'm going to schedule an event with Megan, who's in Contoso. So she's not, she's a synced user. Here's Megan. Now I do have, if I were to type in Megan, because of CDX environment, we do have, I do have a Megan Bowen here, right? But this is the one that's synced from my source tenant, and we'll see that Free Busy is working cross tenant. And I didn't have to do anything in exchange. I literally just checked the checkbox that, so I have that free Busy showing up there. And of course I can create this invite. I can send an email. I can do all kinds of things there. But so Free Busy definitely works cross tenant. Now the chat notifications does not. I'm going to switch tenants. So I'm in Megan now. I'm actually in Contoso. Okay. And if we were to look here, this is the source tenant. So I'm going to look here. We're going to see that I'm syncing. This sync external is enabled outbound sync to Microsoft. Okay. We can go in here. We can look at the configuration. Again, we've got Free Busy as well there. And okay, now let's look at resources. There's a lot of things we could look at. Well, yeah, we'll look at the resources. So let's start with on team. So I'm in Contoso. So she's in her home tenant. She can switch over to Microsoft tenant. It happens really, really fast. Now, what you get on this is a web version. This basically is a PWA, right? A progressive web app through Edge, right? That's not actually the Teams desktop client. Here's my Teams desktop client. Now, on my Teams desktop client, because it's a version 2, you do see this right here, right? Activity in your other orgs. You don't get that in the web client or in the old client. You do get it here. So she does have to actually switch context here. it happens very fast in Teams version 2. And so, and then of course, if I'm here, I can see Megan's presence. Is here. And so, now some of the, switching back, going back to the source. Actually, let me do this real quick. Let me just show you just permissions. So I'm in Microsoft. I'm in my Microsoft tenant, and I want to give Megan access to. I want to add her to, let's say, this governance team here. Go to Megan. Okay, that's the one, right? Contoso. This is Megan. I have a duplicate account, which is one reason why I do this display name thing. But in any case, you'll see here though, it's not an invited guest. It's not a guest. It's a member. I can make her an owner if I wanted, but I can make her as a member, and that's the key difference between this multi-tenant organization, because now Megan will be added to that. It'll show up. Governance. There it is. New, right? She's part of that team. Just as if she was in the organization. Now she has switched context here. But more often than not, we see organizations use the multi-tenant organization. We see them, really kind of all in on the owner tenant, and everybody just kind of uses resources there. Another way that happens is let's just do permissions through SharePoint, right? So we have a company intranet here. Okay, let's just take a look. It loads up here. We'll take a look at the permissions. Pretty standard permissions is because it's the main page, the home page of the intranet, maybe the department sites. They have everyone except external. External would be guest, visitors, read only, right? So that's all we got. So we'll take that site and we'll see if Megan can jump into. Actually, I think I've already got it here. So Megan from the Contoso tenant actually does have access to the site. Now, because Teams, I'm filtering based on audience targeting. She doesn't see all the teams, only the ones she's actually been added to. And then HR department does have, yep, she does have the same visitor read-only type permissions. So permissions are very seamless when we're talking cross-tenant organization versus guest access and external access. Now, the other thing that I've done is on here on the source side. So on that Contoso tenant, let's take a look at some of the behind-the-scenes stuff. When we create that multi-tenant organization, it does this configuration on its own. Used to be we'd have to go in and do a new configuration and do all of this, right? We don't have to do any of that anymore. It creates this MTO sync automatically, and the tenant name is the target. So that's Microsoft. Again, I'm in Contoso, so it's Microsoft tenant. We go in here. Here we go. And here I could, when we do that custom syncing, this is where we can go in and add users or groups to sync. So I can go in and add, a group of users I want to sync. On the provisioning, this is where we can make a couple quick changes. So, for example, if I want my display name to show up in that global address book like this, that's where we make this change. Okay, and that just sometimes could be useful if I wanted to appear in the global address book like that. Let's just switch over to my target tenant here. Look at people. See, they just show up like this. So that's so I just do that. The only other thing I change here is, notice the user type is member. The only difference is it says during object creation. I always change this to always. That way, if something changes, it syncs, it has to resync. It'll always make sure that the user type is a member. Okay. we definitely want that to be a member. So not a guest. That would be the other option there. So, but I just make those two quick changes, and that's really it. But this right here is something that it's just a syntax thing. I just do it. Certainly not required to do it, but if you know, in my case, I've got duplicate names just because of the CDX environment. You know, we're all used to. We've got the same personas, and so because of that reason, then I do that. Yeah, so like I said, a great use case. But while we're at it, if we want to essentially, let me go back to this to reverse the process. So we've situation where we've partnered with an organization for a period of time. They're accessing some of our resources, but we want to sever that process. There's really any number of ways we can do it, but literally the easiest way you can remove these users, and it'll take a little bit of time for them to clear out of the target tenant, but it will essentially delete those users. What you don't want to do is break down the synchronization by just deleting this, because the objects will stay, they won't go away. So you do kind of have to, there's a certain order, and there are really well-written Learn Microsoft articles on that process, but you definitely want to reverse the process, you know, in a situation where you're removing an organization from the multi-tenancy. So with that, I think we've covered about all of the main features. I'm happy to take any questions in case there's something that I may have missed there. Let me show you one other thing, and that's on this external identities, external collab. I want to say, I'll start by saying that actually it's custom access. This right here is this is all configured during that process, but multi-tenant organization is using a B2B collaboration, whereas if you've got B2B direct, think, you know, shared channels with teams. I see organizations that kind of stack those and make the collaboration even a little bit tighter if you're using shared channels. But B2B direct connect is blocked by default. B2B nav is allowed. But as I mentioned early on, you've got with the B2B collaboration, the organizations honor multi-factor authentication. So if there's MFA configured as part of access, then in order for that user to access the resources, that MFA would be enacted as well. So it trusts those configurations. One other thing I wanted to show, and that, as I mentioned it early on, and that is auditing. So any activities are audited here because audit does take a little bit of time. I went ahead and ran an audit against Megan from our Contoso account. It actually happened to, because I don't think I was clear, grab both. But in any case, we can see that audit resources were viewed page. That was a dev site that we looked at a minute ago. So auditing definitely works. You can audit and do any kind of the purview activities around DLP and all of that. Labeling and all of those governance and regulatory controls that you might have there. So now with that, we'll open it up to any questions that we may have around
I think you got a fair few in the chat there, Alan, to be honest, and I can see Konstantinos has got his hands up, and I got a couple as well. So I don't know if you start from Andrew's question. Really, I think what Andrew's asking is about he's been in a few cross and multi-tenant scenarios a few times. It's more common than people think. Often a bit of a management oversight. Are there any kind of top 3 tips or top 3 ideas that we should all kind of focus on to make sure we get those right? Don't know if you want to start with that one, Alan.
Yeah,
top 3 ideas.
Yeah, a lot of a lot of it comes down to just planning the resources that they're going to be accessing, in thinking through those, piloting that out. I've seen organizations that just kind of open MTO pretty cross, if they're doing MTO at all, kind of cross the board. But most of it comes down to, ultimately it really comes down to access, and in being mindful of the access that you're, and thinking that through, kind of what the end goal is, and so, and having some, some compliance controls around that, whether it's data loss prevention, make sure auditing is turned on. Often it's not, and so those are the big ones. But just piloting it out is probably my number one. Make sure that you've got a small subset of users you're testing things with, because we've seen user experiences really vary a bit, especially in an MTO scenario. But yeah.
Oh, that's great. And next one, Jana is asking about if you're aware if AVD support is coming. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. Yeah, Alan, I know AVD was looking at, switching on guest accounts and things like that. But do you know if this multi-tenanted supports AVD logons? I don't know if you've come across that one yet or not.
I have not, but I would have to look at the roadmap. Our standard answer is, well, let me see what Microsoft is doing today, because it's how that changes. But yeah, I saw where they've made some change on the guest side. I would be surprised if this doesn't hit their roadmap. I'd be really surprised.
Yeah, no, I'd agree with that one. I think it's one of those things you gotta keep your eyes peeled a lot, haven't you, with these changes? They happen so frequently and fast. Fair enough. Alan's asking then around custom domains. Do you know how, is there anything to look out for with custom domains in each tenant? How does it handle those?
It really, honestly, so here's the thing. I mentioned earlier that I used a company that I piloted this for. They liked it so much, and it was actually pretty early on. It was still in preview, which I don't recommend putting anything preview in publication. But they liked it so much, and they were piloting it pretty small. Ultimately, they were going to migrate their users, and they really felt that this would give them a pretty good start, because a lot of that comes down to identity. So what we did, there's really the idea of a custom domain or a vanity domain doesn't really come into play here unless you were to need to switch the UPN from a synced user to the target domain, which we've done in a migration scenario, and it actually works pretty well. A couple PowerShell scripts converts the UPN and all of the naming over to the custom domain of the target if that's the end goal, and even licensing can be applied at that point. So, but all the routing is using that ext domain, just like ext address, just like a guest account would. So it routes. If you go to global address book and you send an email, it's going to email it directly to that that user's domain. So I think I understood the question. I think I answered it, but basically, the custom domain doesn't really come into play. You can leverage it if you need to do like a migration, but.
Got you. Yeah, no, and to be honest, that point, I mean, I'll go to Konstantinos in a second now for his question, but that kind of dovetails into a thought that I had in terms of, is this MTO configuration more suited for those customers that are not necessarily syncing back to their on-prem? Like, do you know how it would handle, like if you've got two organizations both syncing back to on-prem, how does it handle the sync from one tenant into the other back to if you've got like, user creation to on-prem synced again? Do those users get synced back to the other legacy domain, the old legacy Active Directory domain? How does it handle those kind of things, Alan? Do you know?
Yeah, they would not. They would be basically we're talking cloud to cloud only.
Yeah. Okay.
So it would not sync back. Now, if I suppose if you had something to add membership and you had group right back, then maybe group right back might. Yeah, I have to think through that honestly. But I can tell you that the identity account would essentially show up as from one tenant to the other. It would just show as a invited user, but it would be a member, not a guest. So it would be a cloud created account essentially.
Got you. No, that makes sense. Oh, Brill. I'll let Konstantinos fire away. Ask your questions, sir.
Hello, thank you for this presentation. Quite informative. Thank you for that. Just a question that came out of a demo that we tried with MTO. MFA, right? The host tenant, right, or the main tenant, let's say, the main directory is enforcing MFA, and now it's not a choice. Okay, every tenant does it. Suppose the coming tenant, the child tenant or whatever, is not enforcing it. Is it correct that they will trigger a new MFA registration for the guest user coming into the home tenant? Is it like?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. And in the case that the source tenant also has MFA, would it be a double? I mean, they will be requested to add MFA for the initial sign up, and then again they will have to re-register MFA for the target.
It would. Yeah, it would be as I understand it. I'd have to set that up, but as I understand it, it would pass that MFA over to the other tenant, depending on the resources it was trying to access.
It will trust the initial, right?
Trust
like that.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Okay. Nice. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you bet.
Perfect. I think you've gotten through the backlog of those questions as well, Alan. No, honestly, I think I've got about another million questions now. That's certainly given me an area to look into. It's the first time I've really, had that good deep run through. So, no, really appreciate the time there to come on and talk us through MTOs, Alan. Thank you very much.
Yep.
If everybody would like to show their appreciation for Alan, there we go. We've got a few, the react button or come off mute and the round of applause. The react button seems to be the way these days, doesn't it? But no, amazing. Thank you again, Alan, for coming on and talking. Obviously, feel free to stick around and feel free to join in the quiz if you've got time. Appreciate you might have some work to do and whatnot. But yeah, thank you again, sir. Really informative.
Yeah, you bet. Thank you.
Okie dokie. Well, let's not stop anywhere near there. We shall just hand straight over to Konstantinos if you're ready, sir.
Yes, for sure. Is it okay to keep the camera off, or we need the camera?
No, your prerogative, up to you completely.
All right, I will keep it off for now, and then I can turn it on so we can have an interactive Q&A or whatever we need to discuss.
Okay. Not a problem at all.
Thank you, great. So let me just start sharing. Well. I think it's... Sorry. Yeah. Right, so let me share the window, and then I will share the screen. Great. So I think you can see now the slide.
Got you all coming through.
Great. So first of all, thank you, John. It's a pleasure meeting you again. Last year we met for another session. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the the overall atmosphere, let's say, quite positive and very relaxed. And at least it fits my own character and my own, way of doing things. So it's been an honor being here again, and congratulations for your latest development on your business side of things. Let's see Azure AI Services on AKS. First of all, a few words about me. I'm Konstantinos. I'm coming from Greece. I'm not an instructor here, probably left over. Don't worry. I'm an MCT and recently an MVP. These two URLs are available through this QR. If you want to scan it, you will be able to see various repositories. Among them is this one that we are looking into. We have all the code, and in the block here, the solution is provided step by step. So kind of work with this together so you can replicate this solution. Right. So we have this urge in the AI space, right? Everything is on AI, and everyone talks about AI. And to tell you the truth, I was very hesitant starting with this sudden explosion of AI services and how it went through social media, even our communities, right? Everyone, regardless their occupation or their business role, was suddenly talking about AI. And at some point, I was very hesitant, and in a very short time, I was fully on board. And this is because I realized that AI isn't here to replace us, right, or take over our jobs, or whatever is the conspiracy out there. For me, at least, and this is a personal opinion, and I'm sure that not everyone, most of us are sharing the same opinion. AI is here to assist us, right? It's here to help us evolve. It's here to do some of the dirty jobs that we are not required to do anymore and do some other stuff. I won't explain, okay, what is AI and all that stuff. We all have our own perspective of these services. But coming from Microsoft and how Microsoft marketed this technology and how they were able to provide the necessary services with the way that they did it, so everyone can create their own solutions. And of course, cloud is the most easy thing to do. Okay, you need a subscription. You can even try out a free trial without paying a penny. And there you go. You can start creating your virtual machines. You can start pushing your code to static web apps or storage account, or whatever you want to do is there, at least for the free trial. There are other ways also. But there are cases where we need to implement an AI solution and keep our environment to, let's say, to a containerized infrastructure. We don't want to have everything out there exposed on a platform as a service offering, the easy thing to do, right? We want to have at least a control, a better management, and as much as control we can have over our model. And by model, we mean, in our case today, text analytics. What we're going to do is this thing. I'm going to show you. Let me see if this will work. Yes, it's working. So we're going to have our Kubernetes cluster in our Azure subscription, where we're going to use and utilize two different node pools. One will be the system and one will be the user. And from my experience, I'm not a Kubernetes expert. I've seen that if you want to really be efficient and create and have a better control over your applications, it is recommended to create user node pools for your applications. since we are already talking about web applications, it means that we need to expose them, right? So we're going to have also our services, and among these services, we're going to have an ingress. I have already built it, but we are going to do it also together. Finally, on the ingress part, we need to change to add the DNS record to our register, so we can point our domain to the IP address of the ingress that we're going to create. Next, we are going to have two containers. Okay, this is the interesting part. The first container will be our web application. It's going to be a very simple, from every aspect, web application, a Python Flask web app, right, with just some easy to look at user interface, where we are going to write our phrases, and these phrases are going to be analyzed by another container. The other container will be the model that we are talking about. And that model will be downloaded directly from Microsoft Container Registry into our Kubernetes cluster. It's that straightforward. So in reality, we are going to have two containers. One will be our web app, and the other one will be our AI model that will interact with our web app. It will perform, as you understood, sentiment analysis. We're going to have in the web app, in the text space, we're going to write something. That something will be sent to the same environment. It will stay into the Kubernetes cluster directly to the other container to say it as simple as possible, and we're going to get back the response of what that sentiment was with some scoring by the model. We need an Azure Container Registry to host our own container image, right? Because we're going to do it from scratch. We have the code, we will containerize it with Docker, we're going to push it to Container Registry, and we're going to pull it from Kubernetes cluster and be ultimately exposed by this ingress controller. And finally, this text analytics thing within the language service. Microsoft has a number of AI services where we can use them like this. And like this, I mean like containers. We don't need the actual AI service to be like we have OpenAI in the cloud, almost like a software as a service offering or something in the middle. But anyway, it's going to be an actual container living into our Kubernetes cluster. And why we are seeing this, Mr. Kostas? Because the only thing needed for this use case is to have this language service available, so our text analytics model can send billing data and some logging or reporting data. That's all. We don't need it for anything else. We don't need to communicate to this API. We don't need to communicate our application to this endpoint. Everything will happen inside our cluster. The only thing that this service is needed for is billing. And actually, we're going to have the free service, the freemium, as my friend recently named it. So it's a freemium one. So actually, nothing it will be built for this service. This is the architecture finally. Our Kubernetes cluster hosting two different containers. One will be our Python web application like this. We're going to see it. It's already there. So if anything happens or we're going to see any trouble, we have it already here. The image will be pushed right to Container Registry with Docker from our workstation and pulled to the Kubernetes cluster through a YAML file. The same will happen with the text analytics. but this time we're not going to pull it from the container registry. We have the URL provided by Microsoft in the documentation, and we can look at it later, which services are available like this. And of course, one of them is the text analytics container. And it needs only this service to, of course, accept these terms. You're going to see how this is happening, very, very easy. Communicate through the endpoint and the API key for billing and metrics. Metrics is the correct phrasing for this case, right? I think it's very simple. In our ingress, we're going to push also a certificate. We're going to use a certificate. It's already there. I have already created with Let's Encrypt. So we can have an almost complete solution, right? Later, if we have time, we can have a little bit of a dive into security, for example, private endpoints and all that nice stuff. So unless you need something to discuss right now, let me stop this presentation and start sharing my screen and go to the workstation and have a quick look on the demo and the actual services and how we can create this thing, how we can make it work. So give me a moment, and I'm sharing. I'm going to share the correct screen. Yes, this is the one. Okay. I'm going to zoom a little bit so you can have a better view. I don't remember the keys, so don't judge me for that. Zoom, yeah, this one, right. So I have already created some stuff for us to save a little bit of our time. Let's see what's going on here. We have an Azure subscription. I'm logged in through the portal, and I have already created our resource group. Our resource group is on North Europe, and I have here our language service. When we're going to create this service, we can be settled with a free one and nothing additional. No additional features are needed. So no custom question answering, no custom text classification. The model is already well trained for sentiment analysis, and that fits with us. Later, as I told you earlier, we can look at these features and probably create some private endpoints and see how that goes. Before anything, and before starting to create our Kubernetes cluster, let me show you our syntax here when what we are doing. So we are telling through AZ CLI, create this cluster with this name into this resource group with one node for starters and with this VM size, and name this agent pool with this name, generate necessary SSH keys, add the label because it's going to be the system node pool, add this custom header, enable the network plugin of Azure, enable this add-on, and attach the container registry. So since we have this command here, we need to create the container registry. So let's go and create it. There are a few ways to do it. The faster for us right now is to go to the portal and do it. So let's see. We just need the standard plan, the standard tier, the standard SKU, but I'm in favor of the premium, and that's because you can lock down access and restrict completely access from the internet. So it's not this one, so let's go and create our own. I'm going to select our source group and let's add a name. 24. We need unique. and random as possible. With Terraform, we could do it very much more automated, but since this is a small deployment, let's do it like that. So you can see here that even if I select the standard plan, I don't have the ability to lock the public access. I have to do it probably another way, but you know, having the premium, you are able to avoid this little issue here if you are concerned about public access. That's all. Let's do it. In our workstation, you're going to notice that I have Docker running. If you're using Linux, you need just the agent running there. The only thing that is it's going to happen is that we're going to run Docker commands. So that's why we need Docker to be able to execute these commands in our workstation. Since I'm using Windows, I have Docker desktop running already to do this thing for me. So while it is creating, let me validate that everything. Yes, I think everything is in place. I'm going to show you a little bit our application. It doesn't have that much interest for you, but I think it is worth just to have a look. It's worth it to have a look. Right, and the correct one I'm going to use is this one. I'm removing the, I don't need this one. This add-on is not needed, so I'm going to use this CLIs. Let me get this out of the way. Right, so I think we are good to go. And you're going to see, again, this command, we can do it directly from the creation of the cluster. But you can see later we can do it also from the portal or from a separate command. Let's do it directly here. So it's going to be attach. I think it's /ACR. That's ACR, yeah, and we need the name. And I'm going to take the name of the container registry. It's already there. I'm noticing the last 3 months there were a lot of issues in the Azure portal, but once these issues were resolved, I'm noticing a little bit of faster and better responsiveness. Let's hope it will stay that way. And yeah, here. And I need this thing here because it's from PowerShell. Right. Okay, before we run this, let's have a quick look at what's going on here. I have my root folder, and this is my front end. This is my Python application, a very simple application. You already saw a little bit of the user interface. I'm going to show you again, of course, this interface. A quick look. It's routing everything to the index file, which is stored into the templates directory. Standard Python way to do Flask exposure, Flask web apps. And it needs some environment variables, which is going to be the container API URL. And in fact, this will be right here, right in the Docker. We can set our environment variable, and this is something that the beauty, right, of containerization and microservices. We can just create our intra-container communication through our variables. Nothing will be stored directly on the code. In our case, we don't need special things, just this thing, and we're going to create the text analytics service with this name. So it's very straightforward. Anyone being into the Kubernetes space, and as I told you, I'm not a Kubernetes expert, right? I would say I'm like a user or an admin, the best case scenario. But you can understand here what's going on. We don't need an FQDN or a DNS. It will resolve based on the service name. That's what I'm trying to say. Nice. We have some the static folder here. It's only for styling, and I don't think we have anything here. That's all. So in fact, the Docker file needs to be in the folder of our application, being the front end, right? This is our application. Actually, this is the folder of our application, and it's going to take everything containerized. It's going to install, of course, um, Python 3.10. It will set the workdir to app, copy everything to this directory. It will run this requirements txt which contains the required packages for this application to be able to run. It will expose port 5001 and it will create this variable so the front end will be able to communicate with the backend, and in a few moments you're going to see what that means. So let's go. Let's create our cluster. Nice. I think everything is correct. The resource group name is not that one. It's RG Wells, and I think it's 1024. Just 24. Just 24. I like this name. The name of the pool is correct. Yeah, I think we can go and do it. This is the name of the container registry. Let me run this command. Run selected text. I'm logged in. Yeah, let's do it. Let's, in the meantime, while we are waiting, let's have a look on the working things. It's on another subscription, but it was recently created, and I know for a fact that it is working. So if I go to my cluster and go to the services, I will find this tab among the services in the side of the services tab, where we can see our ingress. And our ingress is one and only this one. So let's go and hit that URL. And this is what we're going to see. And when I write something here, let's make it a little bit of in the middle, not negative, not positive at all. I think the code needs better a better look because of the outdated packages. Let's see. I'm just running things here. You know, it's not something that I'm using always different services. I don't know why this is happening. Maybe I have disabled or deleted the language service. Let's try something else and we will see. The code looks good. Yeah, probably the language service is gone, or it needs some time. Let me see. Okay, let me see. Yeah, we don't have the language service. So deleted, probably. And that's not a problem. We can easily create it and recreate the service. But since we're already building our application, let's do it correctly from our own. Yeah, I have deleted the language service. Or is this one? I don't know. Doesn't matter. Let's do it on our own. But I think you get what's going to happen. What? Post specified no wait is not allowed. Okay. I think it's running. Let's see. Let's go to our resource group. And let's go to the Welsh. Okay, I'm going to remove the no way thing. Okay, I'm going to remove this one. And run it. Nice. Let's have a look into our YAML and understand what we're going to do. So the first thing is the Flask application. We name it Flask service. Let's have a look what's going on here. So we create a new deployment. We are naming it Flask service. It is our Flask application. You just saw the code. And this is the image that it's going to call. Let's make our first change. We need to set the correct container registry name. So it's not this one. AZ ACR KPW24. KPW24. Right. I'm going to keep everything else the same with the same naming. We're just changing the service. So let's see here. Continuing, the container port will be 5001 and the name of the variable, it's this one. And we are setting the CPU, the memory, some limitations. And be careful here. We need to select the correct pool, which is going to be created once this thing is done. Now, I have to remove this thing from the last this one. I have to remove this one. And be careful also here for any spaces. It's going to fail, even if it has a space that if you think it won't affect it, but it will. So be careful here in the syntax. I've been there and yeah. Let's do it correctly this time. Nice. Let's return to our Flask service. So basically this is the one. We're creating also the load balancer, which is a type of service in our Kubernetes deployment with the port 80 going through and mapping through the 5001, which is actually exposing the main Flask web application, right? Now, the interesting part, this thing here, the sentiment, right? Another Flask, another YAML file. Is a deployment, some metadata. We need the name, of course, the specifications. One replica is enough for our case. The label will be named sentiment. The app will be sentiment. And here is the container. You can see that we don't have to do nothing else than call the container from Microsoft Container Registry and get the image. The sentiment latest tag is what we need. And you can see that it is the cognitive services, text analytics services, sentiment latest. So from this thing, you can understand that there are other images available for us to make things into our Kubernetes and create our AI integrated app without the need to use services in the cloud. This is the important stuff that we talked earlier. We need to accept this end user license agreement directly from our YAML file. We name it billing, and this is what it's looking for. It's going to look for this service in order to have billing data and metrics only. So I have created my service here, and this is the name of it. It's going to be Lang Welsh 24. Let's rename it. This is the endpoint, and we need, of course, the API key to make it able to communicate for billing and metrics with the main resource. Let me save this one, and I think we're good. Again, we're highlighting this, that the node you are going to use, it's going to be an agent pool. And of course, the same way, a service that will expose this time 5,000 to the target port, and the type is cluster IP. This is not needed to be exposed outside to the world, it's just for intra-service communication within the Kubernetes cluster. Let's start looking into our Kubernetes and how that thing is going. The nice thing with the portal is that even if you have set this no wait command, you are able to get notification by this simple message. So you know at this point the cluster is still creating in the creating state. What we need to do once this one is done, we need to create our user pool. So let me find this one. Our user pool, correct. This is how we're going to create it. NAZ command again. Let's get the correct name for our resource group. It is needed. The cluster name, let's set it correctly. Again, it is a best practice. I will say 99.9% sure that you have not another better way to host your application. So keep your agent pool like a systemic pool and create other node pools, user pools for your web applications. I don't remember exactly where, if and where I fell into any problem with this one, or I just went through and did it like this. But this is something that is working, and anyone that has an expertise on Kubernetes or knows much more than I do probably can validate that this is the correct way to do it. Again, we need just one node. Remember, you need a strong VM here. You need a strong VM. You need a powerful VM. And if you go with any lesser thing rather than 416, it's not going to work. And I have tried various sizes. This one is working, and it is capable of holding our services with ease. Okay, if you go with anything else, you may fall into the quota issue because you may need more than one node, and if you keep one node, it won't be able to take the load. So be generous here. Okay, again, no wait here. I think we can run this command if I remember correctly, because we have set the no wait thing to the initial, and this is the case and why we're doing this. So the no wait says, okay, you can proceed with other configurations on the cluster without any problem. Let me see if I can do it. I hope I didn't forget something. Yeah, it looks correct. Yeah, you see that we didn't get an error. Okay, so it is like a queue here. It is queued with this thing. It's queued and it's going to be deployed as well. Nice. I don't think that we are forgetting anything, and we are in the phase where we can start building our application, and let's push it to the container registry. Again, have a quick look in the Docker file. Make sure that everything is there. This, for example, it has a wrong comment. Let's fix it and save it. Yeah, and the sentiment server is correct. All we need to do is cd into the correct folder. You need to be into the folder of your application and be able to see the Docker file so you can run the specific commands that we're going to run right now. The commands are docker build and docker push. First of all, we need to log in to our container registry, and this is a very nice command. If you are trying to find the name, but you just need to log in, you don't care about the name at this stage, you can just say, okay, log me into this container registry, but I don't remember the name, so I'm going to add the parenthesis here with the $sign, and I'm going to log in without knowing the name. I love AZCLI. As much as I love Terraform, AZCLI is my favorite thing to do, rather than PowerShell, to tell you the truth. I prefer working with AZCLI when it comes to this too. It has evolved, and you probably have noticed that almost every week we have a new update in this thing. So yeah, I think this is what's going to be kept upon when it comes to Azure management through a command line interface. So we have been logged in successfully from our workstation to our container registry. And why we need to log in? Because we need to run these commands. It is going to be docker build, and we can just tag it directly, -t. Again, if you don't remember the name, you can just add this, but let's make it clear for us now. We want the name for our workshop. If you want to make automation, you just can do this thing. But in our case, we want to be transparent and see what we're doing. And it is this one, is at ACR KPW24. So it's going to be AZACRKPW24. Let me be sure. AZ is yes. And Azure CR.io / the name of our image and the tag that we select to add. The latest could be anything. We can do it version 1 or version 2. Another advantage of using microservices and containers. You can have various images here, and when you deploy your application to your service, in our case Kubernetes, in your Flask, in your YAML file, you can select specific tag, so you can have a development application, a testing application, another with upgrades, another with different graphics, and you don't mess with the original one. So you can keep the latest as your main and have different tags for different testing scenarios. Don't forget this dot at the end when you are building. So when we say docker build, we need to say docker build and also add this dot at the end. I think everything is correct. I'm into the correct directory. The service name is correct. 5000, yes, let's go. So what is actually happening here? Everything is broken down into chunks of data, of payloads, non-understandable and non-readable by humans. And yeah, that's what Docker does. It is breaking down our code to different chunks of payload. You can find these things, especially it's easier if you have a Linux. You can look into the directories. I don't think it does. It matters, but you know, for curiosity, you just start looking, and you can probably find them. But you have a better transparent view on the container registry. So let's do it. Let's push it now to our container registry. So push. Is it is here? I'm still here, I guess. I heard the noise. Let's see. Am I right? Am I still here?
Yeah, we can still hear you.
Yeah. Thank you. Is it is here? KPW 24. W24. This is the container registry name, the full name, right? The full FQDN, and nothing else is needed here. We're just pushing. I'm sorry. Be careful to select the correct tag at the end. So we're pushing. Now you can have various safeguards here, right? You can protect your container registry, not only with this simple login that I have done, but you can. That's why I'm selecting premium. But anyway, you can lock down access, allowing only specific hosts, specific types of services to connect, and so on. We're a little bit exposed here. Remember, this is a demo. It's not following any best practices regarding correct governance and security, of course. But I'm just saying, okay, better safeguards can be applied. Microsoft Azure offers these controls for us. And yeah, at this point of time, where cloud has been in our lives for more than 5 years, I think we need to be absolute about this. Okay, good. Let's have a look again. What's going on here? Yeah, this thing is working. And a quick look to our pools. So we have our user pool and our agent pool. I'm thinking that, and it is like the way that I'm going to say it, that the agent pool is like the systemic one, right? And the user pool is for us. We are going to deploy things here. And in our YAML files, we're going to say to the kubectl command, yeah, deploy in the user pool. Let's see it. Of course, the easiest thing to do with Kubernetes on Azure is to connect. And you just go to the portal, you just get the command through this copy thing. You don't need anything else to do. You can just open now a new PowerShell, a new command line, a new anything that you're using. Paste. And you can now execute kubectl commands. I don't remember. Get pods. I think is one. There is no pods. Get nodes. I think it's another one. So labels. Yeah, you can see here. Anyway, the point is that we are able to execute our kubectl. So we're in the stage where we have correctly containerized our web app, our Flask web application, and we're now into the phase that we're going to deploy to Kubernetes. Okay, let's start with first of all, we need to attach our container registry to the Kubernetes. There are a few ways to do it. The easiest one, if I remember correctly, it is able to be done. We can do it. I'm sorry. We can do it through the portal. And yes, this is so easy, right? Attach a registry. Just clicking here, select your subscription, find the correct registry. Be careful here, and say, yeah, attach it. Otherwise, there is an AZCLI command where you are attaching the container registry to your Kubernetes cluster. And why we're attaching it? So we will be able to pull the image when we run a kubectl command from the container registry. Okay, that's why. Nice. This is also done. You saw how easy and how fast we did it. Let's go now and start creating our first service. The first service is going to be the sentiment service, right? This is the one, the sentiment deployment. Let's have a quick look through our YAML and make sure that we don't have anything amiss. Okay, it is a deployment with this name, and these are the labels that we're using. This is the latest text analytics image that we're going to download directly from our Microsoft container registry. Again, quite many services here. We can have a look later. We are setting our limits here regarding the actual computer power. Okay. Accepting the end user license agreement. Setting the environment variable as billing. This is everything documented. Nothing came out of my head. I found everything in Microsoft documentation. The value where we need to add is the endpoint for our language service to be able to generate any billing if needed. We are on the freemium anyway, and the value for the key. We did it. We are good with it. Let's have a quick validation regarding the service, but yes, this is the correct one, and we have done it. Let me save. It is a common issue for us that we forget to save. Autosave is a feature of VS Code. I don't like it. I want to see when I'm doing something wrong and be able to understand it. So that's why I don't want to have it. Be careful here. This is the important also stuff in our YAML file. We are telling in this deployment, go use the user pool. Be careful with the name, right? You may have named your user pool whatever. Just make sure that you are using the correct name. User pool. So we're going to do what? Let's see that we can see this YAML. So it is very easy. kubectl -f, right? Yeah. No, apply is the first one. I'm sorry. Apply. Yeah, apply -f, and the sentiment deployment is what we're going to do. Is everything here? Yes. Yes. Do it. And that's it. If we go now to the Kubernetes cluster in the portal, we are going to see the services deployed. Let's give it some time. It needs some time to fire up the pod. Good. Let's continue. The next thing that we need to do is our Flask service. Let's have a quick look here. This is the file that will deploy our containerized now Flask application, okay, living in the container registry here. And it is worth to have a quick look. If you go to the registry and go repositories, we're going to see your repository with the name that you have given to your image, with the latest tag, and this is something that looks like what is the manifest of the file and some reference if there are any. But anyway, also you can deploy here to the web app or running directly like an instance. Specific, of course, requirements are needed. We are good to go. So we're going to pull from this YAML deployment our image. I think we are good to go. Yes, we are good to go. So The next thing is this one, and kubectl. Apply -f. This time is the Flask. Sorry, Flask service.yaml. I think everything's correct, right? Haven't forgotten something. How did I name it? Flask web. Yes, this is correct. Flask service. Yes, user pool. And also the load balancer. You can see that you can have in the same file, create also the service for the load balancer. That's not a problem. You can do it either separately or in the same file. Yes, also this one is created. And finally, what we want to do is to create a secret, because we want to use our own, we want to use an ingress, and the command is this one. Make sure you are in the directory where you have your private key.pem file and your certificate in the PEM format. Okay, and also you need to add the namespace name. In our case, it is default, so it is kubectl again. Create secret. kubectl create secret TLS. This is the Flask. Sorry, Flask app TLS, where the key is the priv key.pem, yes, and the certificate is the certificate is where is it? This one, cert.pem. Cert.pem. Let me remove this. Doesn't matter, but yeah. And yeah, I think we are nice. We're creating a secret, right? A TLS secret, naming it Flask App TLS with this key and this certificate. I have created this PFX, and through OpenSSL, I was able to export the private key to this format and the certificate to this format. Do it. Finally, I think we are good to go, and we are in the position to have a quick look into our actual services, hopefully. And yeah, let's see what's going on here. First of all, a quick look into the services. This is our load balancer and the sentiment service look healthy. Sometimes you may see here an OK, but if you open the sentiment service, you may find problems here on the pods. Be careful with that. That's why Kubernetes, you need to dig. You need to dig a little bit deeper if you want to troubleshoot correctly. And I found that the hard way. Where is my certificate? I don't remember where I can find it, but it is visible. I think it's the workload. We're looking for yeah, services and ingresses. No, that's the configuration, right? Yeah. We need this Flask, yes, secrets. Here is our secret, Flask app minus TLS, okay? And this is going to play its role when we're going to create our ingress, okay? Let's make a quick hit without TLS. No, I have to create the ingress, right? So let me do it. No, it should be able to open. Yeah, should be able to open. Let's give it some time here. And I'm going to create now the ingress. Let me do it. Okay, I need to create the DNS domain name, and it's this one. Ingress file. Yes. So let's add this domain. I have the access to the DNS register, so I'm going to create that one. Yeah, I think I have to create this. And we need to apply. Be careful here. The secret name is the name of our deployment, of our previous deployment that we ran for our certificate. So secret name is this. Did I forgot something? No. 24, yeah. And save it. Maybe I didn't save earlier. I didn't think there's anything to do. So let's go. kubectl again. Sorry. kubectl apply -f, and this time is the Flask app ingress.yaml. Yes, this is the correct one. Let's do it. It needs some time. It needs some time to run. So I'm not sure. We have to create to wait here. So let's wait a little bit. And in the meantime, let me have a quick look, and we will be able to understand if we have any trouble here from the previous deployment. So it was this one, services and ingresses. Yeah, I don't think this one will run. Yes, that's true. So yeah, we have to wait for our ingress. Yeah, we have to wait. So give it a time. Let's go back to our original Welsh. Where is the Welsh one? Filter out this. Find our deployment. Find the new service. Yeah, I need. Yeah, I need to create the DNS here. Okay, but I should be able to hit this one and run. Give it some time, and I hope I didn't forget something. The sediment deployment is correct. Ingress, yes. Yes, we have a problem here. Let's see what's the problem. Yes, I didn't save the file when I deployed the the service. Yes, no problem. Let's do it. Save the file and rerun the service. The problem is that I didn't save this file, and it it tried to look to the old container registry name. Okay, it's nice to have some errors so we are able to see how we can resolve these ones. And in my case, and I'm sorry for that, I forget to say it. And I'm stubborn and I don't want the autosave. Yeah, so don't try to make sense there. Okay, the nice thing about Kubernetes here, you make an error, don't worry. You can just rerun the correct YAML file. It will create the correct deployment for you. So again, I'm an admirer of this technology, but if you ask me, I will probably go through container apps, Azure container apps, which is not that mature like Kubernetes and that agnostic, okay? Again, Kubernetes is a huge thing to deal with, and you have seen, you are IT professionals, right? You have seen how this technology has taken over the world of microservices. A lot of a lot of documentation, a lot of stuff to understand and go through. Yeah, I wish I had the time to be able to read deeper into the Kubernetes world and probably be able to at some point in time get something like a certificate or whatever. I don't know if I will be able to do it, but yes. Let's see what will happen here. Or we still have a problem. Am I forgetting something in the code? Let's see. It's the Flask service. ACRAZ. Yeah, of course. Of course I'm making an error. Forgive me. Okay, I'm saving and I'm reapplying. I don't know if I'm out of time. I really don't know. And if I'm out of time, please tell me. I will stop right now. Yeah, in case we have to stop.
I think you've got a few more minutes yet.
Okay, that's nice. Thank you. Okay, I think we're in a better spot. And yes, now we're working without HTTPS, of course, but we can work and we can say our code seems to need more clarifications. Let's see if it will understand anything of this. Of course, I can make easier things to make it work with. But yeah, let's give it some time. Yeah, so it is returning. Let me zoom. It will return, and this is, of course, our selection, right? How we're going to present the results back. It's through the code. You can find it also in GitHub. It will say, okay, you gave me this document. I am considering it as neutral, and this is why. My confidence is that you have a positive attitude here. You have a neutral attitude, which I think is the most, is what happens here, and not so much of a negative. So it is a neutral, and I think it went well with this one. My aunt cooks the best apple pies. And this is, of course, a positive, right? You can see how fast it is. Now, if you try to do the same experiment using Azure OpenAI or a language or a cognitive service, a language service with sentiment analysis, it won't be that fast. You saw how fast it is, and the final negative one, the application needs, okay, not needs, application is absolutely, I will say it, and it is a negative one. Okay. Now, the final step is, and yeah, I don't need to do it, and everyone can understand what's the final step. The final step is to just go and add to your DNS register this host where you will say, okay, point it to a new ingress that I'm going to create here. Okay. And when I do it, you get a public IP, and all you have to do, I'm saying it again, is say, okay, this host is going to look into the new public IP that will be created as a new ingress. And that's all. That's all. Be careful. And I'm highlighting this strongly. When you get the ingress, you won't be able to run the service by hitting the IP. Again, when you create the ingress, you won't be able to run the service by hitting the IP. You have to go and hit the host. So it is an absolute necessary step to make that DNS record in your register. It's going to be an A record, okay? Not a CNAME, an A record. And why? Because it's an IP. I think you understand that. Okay. Yeah, it will take some time. I don't want to take everyone's time. I think this part is easily understandable. Easily understandable. It's going to be a public IP. I have created already the ingress, and all we need to do is point our host to this IP that's going to be created. Right. Now, a final step. I won't do anything, but what we can do here, create the private endpoint, right? And if you went to the premium tier, you can disable absolutely block public access, just create the private endpoint. And then you need to link the private DNS zone with the network that holds our Kubernetes cluster. It's this one. And here you will find all the infrastructure elements of the Kubernetes. It's worth to have a good look here and understand what's going on. Yeah, you need to link, again, you need to link the private DNS zone that will be created from the private endpoint of the container registry. You have to link it with the VNet of the Kubernetes so the Kubernetes can be able to understand that, okay, container registry does not live in the public internet. I can find it through the bucket, through the backbone. Okay. And yeah, if we look now in this service, you will see in the monitoring metrics tie-in, nothing. What we're going to see, cognitive services usage, text records. Are we seeing anything? No. What else? The tie-in rate limit server successful total calls. Nothing. Server successful calls probably. No. I don't remember which thing we're going to find here. I think it's only a metric. I don't remember which one. HTTP request. No, we don't have HTTP requests. Yeah, availability is 100%. And the pricing is premium. So all in all, I think only once it communicated got the okay from the end user license agreement, and the container was able to be deployed in our Kubernetes. If you go to AI service, AI container services. This is what you will find, and there are much more details, whether and how you can do it in a completely disconnected environment. Okay, mostly language service, speech, and vision. We have also some document analysis, if I remember correctly, but this is the link. If you are interested in replicating the demo or doing your own, this is the place to go. Thank you very much for staying with me. I hope you forgive me for some mistakes I did. It was not on purpose, but I think we got something out of the errors, right? Something is gotten out there. Thank you, John.
Brilliant, Konstantinos. No, at the end of the day, it just goes. It's very true to life. I think is probably the best way to put it, isn't it? I think I don't think there's anybody that can ever do that sort of stuff and not get it wrong.
At least once.
Oh well, no, it's really good. I think it's really good to see all the components of AKS and kind of running those AI services as well. It's quite apparent. Again, I take it to the day-to-day job that I do with some of my customers, and being able to run these services locally at the edge on on-prem, so to speak, is, like you say, the speed, and all the other benefits to it is there to see. So no, really good. I'm not sure that we've got any questions, but if you have, then please put them in the chat now. But Matt, you got any points from your perspective?
No. It's fascinating. It's nice to see. It's been a while since I've been in that space, so yeah, it's nice to have a little bit of a refresher, to be honest.
Nice to see you, Matthew.
And you.
Almost a year as we talked with John.
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah.
I really appreciate that, Konstantinos. Keep in touch now. We'll get you back when you've got another demo to run through, as I'm sure. So, no, really appreciate it. Look, if everybody can show their appreciation, that'd be wonderful with the react button. It's got to be an easier one, doesn't it? So there we go.
Thank you,
cool.
Everyone. Thank you, John.
Really appreciate your time. Thanks again, Konstantinos. Now stick around. We'll move straight to the quiz, shall we, Matt? And
we'll wrap with it.
Whilst you're loading that up, I'll read out the names of the e-pack. So we're going to go for 4 prize. I think the top 4 tonight again, Matt. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So first and second prize will give a £25 Amazon voucher, and then third and fourth we've got 2 e-packets, e-books from Packet. The first one is implementing GitOps with Kubernetes, and the next one is mastering DevOps on the Microsoft Power Platform. So,
exciting!
2 interesting books there.
I've done some stuff in that space. It's a fascinating bit. Fascinating.
Say again.
I've done some stuff in that doing DevOps with Power Platform. It's fascinating. Not easy, but it's fascinating. You need a good ebook for it. That's what you need.
Yeah, exactly. Up for grabs. So yeah, we should have probably 13 or so folks joining the quiz. Just give us a shout if you're struggling. Apart from you, Alan. If you're still there. Is he still there? Mr. Florence? Yes.
I'm here. Juggling a million balls.
You got to have this down to a T now, logging on for the quiz, surely.
Oh, I don't know.
When it works.
Yes, well, when the sprockets gobble up all the bandwidth, that doesn't help.
Yeah, nice to see some new faces joining tonight as well, and obviously some old faces. Yeah, just message or come off mute if you're struggling to get on for any reason. We'll hang fire for a minute to let people join, but should be another 3 or 4 players maybe if you're all going to join. Much movement. Is everybody that wants to join actually in? Drop us a message in the chat if you're still struggling.
50% chance of getting a prize at the moment.
There is good high Hi, Chance. Who's coming as test? Who's that?
Couldn't possibly comment. I'm just
I
testing
thought
it
it'd
on
be
my
you.
phone.
Okay, we'll give it. See if we can get one more. Do one more round.
I make it 12, Matt. So there's 3 people that haven't come in. That's fair enough if you can't join because you've got other things to do. But no, I've not heard from anybody else. So no, I think we're probably good to go then, are we?
3, 2, 1. Let's go. Which piece of Microsoft hardware will stop getting security updates in 2027? And technically the V2 of the product. Yes, it was HoloLens. Yeah, sadly, we're not going to be doing that anymore. Which other piece of Microsoft hardware is being discontinued at the end of this month? This is a shocker. I agree, Andrew. It really is a shame. HoloLens is a fascinating bit of tech.
They give up too easy on some things.
Yeah. Well, this is the correct answer for that one was the Surface Duo 2, which was the folding Android screen. That's
Yeah,
not
another
getting
mistake. They
Yeah,
should
it
have
is. I agree. I had a chance to play with one of those the other day. Actually, it's really nice. When is Microsoft Ignite happening this year? That should be spelling typo there, but never mind. It's coming up soon. I hope everyone's looking forward to it. It's going to be a big one. I mean, they're always big ones, but it's the 12th, 19th to 22nd of November, so pretty soon, about a month away. That's why it's really hard to compile a quiz at a time like this, because they're saving all the news until then. What's the new default limit for storage account data egress? And if you identify 33.6 kilobits per second, then you're old and you should probably get your prostate checked.
That's why I was chuckling then.
The correct answer is 200 gigabits a second. Oh, here's one that's relevant. What's the maximum number of tenants that can join a multi-tenant org? It was mentioned tonight as well.
You did. I was going to say you did mention it as well. So
really pleased. It was 100. Most you getting that one? Which of the following is not a Kubernetes resource name? It's a cookie. Yes, all the others are. This was a GPT-generated version. What's the default orchestrator version used by Azure Kubernetes Service for new clusters if you don't specify? It creates good quizzes, but they're a bit wordy. Is it the latest version in that region? The oldest supported version? It was the latest version. To the 4 of you that got that, well done. What's the role in Entra ID used for granting administrative permissions to manage Azure resources? And again, this is a GPT generated version, so I'm pretty sure it's right. But oh, that split the board, didn't it? Global administrator, it's the right one. What is a tenant in Microsoft Azure? Again, another GPT generated version.
when I did it last month, Matt, all my answers were really long.
Yeah, it's the problem with the
and they didn't fit in the bubbles.
I would
Copilot
question
generated.
that last one though. Global administrator.
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, Cloud
Yeah.
App Administrator is for Enter ID things.
No, so the reason I say it's wrong is it's global admin plus the user access administrator role because you need to grab the security context of the subscriptions, which you can't do with global admin.
Yep, you're absolutely right. You are absolutely right. Who's this Microsoft executive? Famous for his red shirt.
Yep.
And one of the keynote speakers at Ignite next month. He's Scott Guthrie, a thoroughly nice man. Used to be on the ASP.NET team a long time ago. There's our winner.
So winners, plural.
Indeed, yeah.
Right, let me take a snip of that. Okay, so can you, if you are 1 to 4,
I
was sipping it. I always find it difficult to talk and do something else at the same time. If you don't mind just confirming who you are, I think Andy M, Simon, just confirm surnames, that in the chat, and just drop me your emails if you can. If you don't want to drop them in the chat here, drop them over to me on Twitter or LinkedIn or something like that. Just it'll act as a little memory for me to get the prizes over to you. So congratulations to you all, and thank you for joining in. So bear with 1 second whilst I just, and thanks for the quiz, Matt, as always.
No worries. Have you got that? You've got the screen grab, have you?
Got the screen grab. Yeah, just everybody just confirm who you are in the chat. I got, yeah, Simon. Yeah, just fire it over to me. Who is IA, by the way? Who is IA, just in case they forget to email me?
That was me, John.
Oh, of course it's you. Right, fine. Not a problem.
I know Matt's going to struggle in a few weeks' time because they answered every question. It'll just be Copilot.
Yeah. I'm sorry, Damu. We've got 4 prizes. We should make it 5 somehow, shouldn't we, Matt? Really, just to get everybody on the board, a prize. But
well, I don't know. You're setting a bad precedence there.
Probably, to be honest, we should probably go down to 2 prizes or 1 prize even. But anyway, we're too generous, aren't we? That's the thing.
Make them sort after.
Exactly. But right, let's wrap this one up. Appreciate it a little bit over time tonight. So thank you everybody for sticking around as per usual. Really appreciate everybody joining in. Huge thanks to the speakers tonight, both to Alan and Konstantinos. Hopefully you'll agree to 2 fantastic chats tonight, and really kind of get you into something a little bit different, hopefully. Yeah, like I say, thanks to all the new faces for joining in. Hope to see you next month as well. And the same to all you you familiar faces. Thanks for coming along again. Bookmark your diaries, 20th of November, usual time 6:30, and we've already got the RSVP up on the meetup for that one as well, because we've got our speakers confirmed early. So until next month, thanks all for coming along, and have a nice rest of the week, everybody. See you all soon.